Once upon a time, there was a king who always told laconic, short, and powerful stories. He was famous throughout the land for his bravery and strength. And one day he decided to tell a new story. So, he assembled all the people of his kingdom and said, "I will tell you a story about the people of Laconia, who were even braver and more powerful than me. They were so brave that they didn't even need many words to scare away their enemies." Ha ha! Then he started his story. Long ago, the people of Laconia were famous for being brave and speaking very little. That's why when something is short and direct, we call it laconic. One day, the king of Macedonia sent a message to the Spartans, "If I march into your land, I will destroy your city." Now, the people of Laconia were known for their bravery, so they weren't scared at all. They just thought about what to say in reply. They wanted to show the king that they weren't afraid and that he would never defeat them. But they also didn't want to insult him or make him angrier. So they decided to send back as few words as possible, just one word. They wrote down "if." Then they sent the note back to the king. When the king read the reply, he couldn't believe it. He thought, "Did I do something wrong? Did I insult them somehow?" He reread the letter, but it only said "if," and he didn't know what it meant. So, he sent it back again asking them to explain. But the Spartans just wrote "if" again. The king was furious. He couldn't understand why they wouldn't answer him. So he got ready to attack and led his army to their gates. When his soldiers reached the border of Laconia, the Spartans came out to meet them. The two armies faced each other, ready to fight. But before anyone could attack, the Spartans shouted "if." Then they repeated 3 times, "If you are the king's army, attack us. If you think you can defeat us, attack us. If you have the power to stop us, attack us." The Macedonian soldiers looked at each other. They didn't know what to do. Had they attacked, they would be fighting against the bravest people in the world. And they knew that if they lost, their king would be very angry. So they turned around and ran away. The Spartans didn't chase after them. They just stood at the border and watched them go. Then they went back to their city, where everyone celebrated their victory. From that day on, no one dared to threaten the Spartans ever again. The king then turned to the people and asked, "So, who do you think was stronger? The Macedonians or the Spartans?" The people replied, "Of course, the Spartans." Then the king continued, "And who do you think was more powerful? The Spartans," the people said. "And who do you think was more brave?" The people shouted, "The Spartans, the Spartans." Then the king said with a big smile, "That is exactly what I wanted to tell you. Sometimes the fewest words can be the strongest, and the quietest person can be the bravest of all." Then he ended his story and the people kept thinking about it for a long time. They understood that sometimes less can be more, and that being quiet doesn't mean that you're weak. It means that you're strong enough to face any challenge without saying a word. You see, in life, some people try to show how strong they are by talking loudly and making lots of noise. But true strength is shown by those who don't need to say much. Because when someone is truly brave and confident, they don't need to brag or boast. Their actions speak louder than words. And sometimes the quietest person can be the bravest of all. Then the king told them that he had one more story and asked them if they wanted to hear it. The people happily agreed because they loved his stories and also because they liked being reminded to not judge others by their silence. So the king began his next story, which was about a very confident lion narrator. And that's the story. Thank you for watching. You enjoyed the story, please like and subscribe. Until next time, remember to be brave and kind. Once upon a time in ancient Rome, there was a slave named Androclus who tended the emperor's garden. One day, Androclus couldn't take it anymore. The long hours, the harsh words, the pain of being a slave made him run away from the city. Androclus ran and ran until he came across a deep forest. There he wandered for many days, eating berries and sleeping under the trees. One evening, he heard a terrible sound, like nothing he'd ever heard before. Curious, he followed the sound until he found a cave. As he neared the cave, he heard the sound again, a deep, painful groan. Androclus was scared. But his own pain made him forget his fear. He slowly entered the cave. It was dark, damp, and smelled like old dirt. Then he saw him, a huge lion lying on the ground. The beast looked up at him with sad eyes. And then Androclus noticed what was wrong. A huge thorn had become stuck in the lion's paw. It must have been stuck there for days, causing an awful pain. The lion tried to pull it out with his teeth, but he only hurt himself more. Androclus felt bad for the poor animal. Even though he was scared, he knew he had to help. Taking a deep breath, he slowly approached the lion. He gently stroked the animal's back, trying to calm him down. The lion trembled at first, but then he relaxed a little when he felt Androclus's kind touch. Slowly, very slowly, Androclus reached out to the thorn. With all his strength, he pulled it out. The lion roared in pain. Then he licked Androclus's hand. It was the only thanks he could give. Androclus stayed with the lion in the cave for many days. He brought water and food and scratched the lion behind the ears. The lion loved this. Soon, the two became the best of friends. Androclus even named the lion Leonidas. But one day, Androclus heard people coming. They were looking for him. He knew they would take him back to Rome and to his old life as a slave. When they found him, they tied his hands and feet and dragged him outside. "Run away," said Androclus to Leonidas. "Be free." The lion shook his head. "No way." He would not leave his friend. Then the men dragged Androclus to a nearby town and threw him into the jail. The next day, they took him out again and paraded him through the streets. All the people jeered and yelled at him. They wanted to punish him for running away. Finally, they brought him to the center of the town and threw him into the arena. The gate slammed shut and the crowd roared. Then it opened again. Out came a lion. Everyone gasped. It was Leonidas. He looked around with a confused expression. Then he saw Androclus. The two stared at each other for a moment. Then the lion did something amazing. Instead of biting and tearing, he wagged his tail. He recognized his friend. The crowd cheered. They had never seen anything like this before. The emperor was surprised, too. He couldn't believe that a lion would wag its tail at a man. He asked the guards if they knew where the lion had come from. When they told him about Androclus and Leonidas, the emperor was moved. He set both the man and the lion free. Androclus and Leonidas were so happy. They walked through the streets of Rome together, no longer a slave and his lion, but a man and his best friend. And that's the end of the story. Now it's time for our lesson. The story of Androclus and the lion shows us that we should always be kind to others. You never know when you might need their help. And even small acts of kindness can return to us in surprising ways. So remember, friends, a kind heart makes a friend, even in a lion. The end. Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be doing our next treasure. So let's get started. We're going to read from the book The Most Perfect Gift. Treasured Stories for Little Learners. And this story is called Cornelia's Jewels. Once upon a time in the great city of Rome, there lived a noble woman named Cornelia. She was the mother of two boys, Lucius and Titus. One day growing up, Lucius and Titus would become famous throughout Rome. People would talk about their wisdom and the good things they did. But this was a long time in the future, right now. Cornelia's boys were just little boys who liked to play. Now, Cornelia had many friends who were also mothers. They would get together and play games and chat while their children played around them. Cornelia's friends were very wealthy women. They wore beautiful gowns and golden bracelets and jeweled rings. Oh, they loved to show off their sparkly treasures. One day Cornelia's friends came to visit her. They sat down in the courtyard and admired the fountains and statues. Then they started to take off their wraps and shake their colorful scarves. "Cornelia," they said with a smile, "where are your jewels?" Cornelia knew they wanted her to show off her treasures. But Cornelia didn't have any golden necklaces or diamond rings. Instead, she had a plain silver bracelet which didn't even have any jewels in it. Cornelia got up and went inside her house. She came back out and called her two boys to come see her friends. "These are my jewels," she said proudly. Her friends couldn't help but laugh at this. They thought Cornelia was being silly. What did she mean? Of course they knew she was joking. How could anyone compare these two little boys to precious jewels? But Cornelia just smiled. She knew her friends would understand someday. Now her boys were too young to know what their mother had told the ladies. So Cornelia took them by the hands and led them into the house to get the little ones a snack. The ladies stayed for a while longer, but soon it was time for them to go. They said goodbye to Cornelia and the boys and went home. Every day Cornelia's friends came to visit her. Every day they asked about her jewels. Every day Cornelia proudly showed off her two boys. As the years passed, Cornelia's boys grew up to be wonderful men. They became leaders in Rome. People came from other lands just to meet them. All of Cornelia's friends were very surprised. They remembered Cornelia's words. They finally understood that her sons were her jewels. One day, Cornelia's friends came to visit her. They brought gifts of jewels. They had necklaces and rings and bracelets. "These are for you, Cornelia," they said, "so you can have the jewels you wanted." Cornelia took the gifts and smiled. But she didn't have the heart to tell her friends that she didn't want their presents. She didn't want jewels. She already had them. That day, Cornelia's friends noticed something. Cornelia looked very happy. She wasn't comparing her sons to jewels anymore. They could see that Cornelia's jewels, her real jewels, her sons, were grown up and would always be with her. And remember, you can find all of the treasures you need right here. Narrator, the story of Cornelia reminds us that the true treasures in life are not riches, but family, love, and the people we raise. On-screen text: children are a parent's greatest treasure. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's story. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can also check us out on our website. We have lots of fun stuff there, including activity sheets and coloring pages for our stories. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Hello, dear friends. In today's story, we'll meet two friends who showed how real friendship should be. Their names were Damon and Pythias. They lived long ago in the Greek city of Syracuse. At that time, there was a powerful and very cruel ruler in Syracuse. His name was Dionysius. He liked to take out his bad mood on his people. So, he ruled with an iron fist. And one day he got angry at a young man named Pythias. He accused him of plotting against him and said, "Pythias, you shall be put to death." Pythias fell to his knees and said, "Oh, great king, you are so powerful and strong, I cannot challenge your decision. But before you take my life, please allow me to go home. Let me say goodbye to my wife and children and other relatives. Please let me do that, oh, great king." And the king thought for a moment. "You know what, Pythias? You are right. It's kind of mean of me to kill a guy without giving him a chance to say goodbye to his family. No, you're right. You can go home." And Pythias thanked the king. He bowed and went away. But the king said to himself, "Why did I let him go? Of course, he won't come back. He's just planning to escape from the city, probably with the treasure of mine that I let him steal. Yes, that's it. He must have hidden it somewhere in his house." And when Pythias reached his house, he started to prepare for his imminent death. He told his wife to give away their treasures to the poor, to share their food with those who had nothing to eat, and to sell their house and give the money to their children. After doing all that, he went to bed, thinking about his friend Damon, who would be executed instead of him. "Oh, Damon," he thought, "you're the best friend I could ever wish for. I hope you don't blame me for what I'm going to do now." And he decided to return to the king. The next morning, Pythias got up early and ran to the king's palace. He knocked on the door and cried, "Oh, mighty king, here I am. Please don't hurt Damon anymore. Let me die instead of him." And the king was very surprised. He couldn't believe that anyone would choose such a terrible death. But Pythias kept knocking on the door, crying, "Oh, please don't hurt my friend. He didn't do anything wrong." And after some time, the king finally opened the door and said, "What is it, Pythias? Why do you want to come back? You know you're going to die here. I want to tell you, O king, that Damon didn't tell me to come back. No, no, this is entirely my own idea. I'm doing this because I want to show you what a real friend is like. You may take my life, but never accuse Damon of being a traitor, for he is the most loyal man I know." And Pythias burst into tears. And the king looked at him for a moment and said, "Very well, Pythias, I see that you are a brave young man. I won't kill you. Instead, I'll let you both go. You may leave Syracuse and never come back." And Damon and Pythias embraced each other. Then they bowed to the king and left the palace. Friends, this is a story about what a real friendship is like, about loyalty and sacrifice. Damon and Pythias trusted each other completely, and even though they knew that someone might get hurt, they didn't hesitate to help each other. Well, that's all for today. See you soon. Bye. Hey, everybody, it's me, and welcome to this channel where we grow our brains together. This is a story of a battle that is remembered even today, the bravery of 300 Spartans at Thermopylae. Once upon a time, more than 2,000 years ago, there was a great and powerful king named Xerxes. He ruled over an empire that stretched from Egypt to India. It was called the Persian Empire, and Xerxes wanted to add Greece to his empire. So, he assembled a huge army and marched it into Greece. Some historians say his army was 1,000,000 soldiers strong. That's a very big army. The Greek city-states were afraid. They sent out messengers to every Greek city-state to gather soldiers to fight against the Persians. But it would take time for the Greeks to assemble their army. And in the meantime, the Persian army was coming closer and closer to Athens, the capital of Greece. So the Greek leaders knew they needed to stop the Persians somehow. Then a Spartan king named Leonidas said, "I will stop them." Leonidas was the king of Sparta, one of the most powerful city-states in Greece. Sparta was famous for its warriors. Every boy in Sparta was trained to become a fierce warrior. Even as a young boy, they had to show courage, strength, and self-discipline. When they grew up, they either became a warrior or an official. And every Spartan male was expected to serve in the army all their life. So when Leonidas said, "I will stop the Persians," he meant it. But how could just one king stop an army of 1,000,000? There had to be some trickery involved. As the Persian army neared the city of Thermopylae, Leonidas and his 300 warriors marched to the narrow pass. The pass was between a high mountain and the sea. On one side of the pass, the mountain rose high above the plain. On the other side, the sea crashed against the rocks below. The pass was so narrow that only a few thousand soldiers could fight in it at once, but Leonidas and his men held the pass. They blocked the road with their shields and spears pointed towards the oncoming Persians. The Persians came pouring through the hot gates like a flood, but they couldn't get past the Spartans. For 2 days, the Spartans fought fiercely. They fought as if they were immortal. The Persian arrows fell like rain around them. But they stood their ground. The Persians charged again and again. But the Spartans beat them back each time. The Spartans were so outnumbered that if any other army had been in their place, they would have run away long ago. But not the Spartans. They did not run. They stood firm in the face of certain death. But then something unexpected happened. A traitor appeared. His name was Ephialtes. He showed the Persians a secret path that led around the mountain. The next morning, the Spartans were surrounded. They fought bravely, but they knew they would all die. But still, Leonidas made a plan. He let some of the Greek soldiers go. He wanted them to tell the other Greeks what had happened. Then he and his men fought to the death. Not one Spartan surrendered. Let's think about this story. What do you think is the most important lesson from this story? Do you know someone who is brave like the Spartans? Have you ever done something brave? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Narrator, the courage of the 300 Spartans inspired all of Greece. Later, their sacrifice helped lead to the defeat of the Persians. This story reminds us that bravery and Sacrifice for freedom can echo through history. And that's all for today. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Once upon a time in ancient Greece, there was a famous philosopher named Plato. He was a wise man who taught others about good and evil, truth and beauty, justice and wisdom. But one day, a man came to Plato and said, "Sir, I want to know the meaning of life." Plato thought for a moment. "Well," he said, "that's a great question. Perhaps you can learn its answer from a simple story." He led the man to a nearby garden and told him, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a king named Midas. Now, Midas was not any ordinary king. No, he was a foolish king. Although he had everything one could desire, wealth, jewels, a beautiful palace, he was deeply unhappy. Why? Because Midas had one big problem. You see, the king loved to eat. But he didn't just eat ordinary food. No, he wanted to eat delicious food, spicy and sweet, baked and grilled. He wanted the best chefs to cook his meals. So he kept searching, looking throughout his kingdom for the most skilled chef he could find. But no matter how good a cook was, Midas would eventually get tired of his food. "It's not tasty enough," he would cry. "I need someone even better." Soon, his foolish search became a legend. Everyone knew King Midas was looking for the greatest chef in the world. And then one day, a young man came to the king. He introduced himself as a chef and said, "Your Majesty, I am the best cook in the whole wide world. Just give me 3 days and I will make you the most magnificent feast you have ever tasted." The king was delighted. "Very well," he said, "you have a deal. Let's see what you can do." So the young chef set to work. He chopped vegetables, ground spices, and prepared the ingredients for a marvelous meal. But he did something else, too. After the first day of cooking, as the sun set, he wrote these words on the wall of the kitchen: "Whoever reads these words shall become the master chef of the king." Then he locked the kitchen doors and went home. That night, a servant passed by and saw the words on the wall. "Whoever reads these words shall become the master chef of the king." He hurried to read them out loud. And as he did, poof, magic happened. He was suddenly whisked to a faraway land where kings and queens ruled. He was dressed in fine clothes and jewelry. He rode on a golden chariot pulled by 8 strong horses. He was given a crown and treated like a real king. But after a few moments, he remembered the young chef. "Wait," he said. "This was supposed to be his reward, not mine. I must give the magic words to him." And so the man went back to the kitchen and handed the words to the young chef. The chef, too, wanted to be a king, so he read the magic words and poof, he too became a king. And this is how the foolish King Midas lost his throne because of his greed for better and better food. But why was this man such a fool, you ask? Well, he was a fool because, like most rulers, he forgot the secret of happiness. When we chase things endlessly, thinking they will make us happy, we forget to appreciate what we already have. Happiness does not come from more money, more power, or more possessions. It comes from gratitude, simplicity, and inner peace. These are lessons we can all learn from the story of King Midas. So remember, friends, true happiness is not found in riches or power, but in peace of mind. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed The Foolish King, stay tuned. We have many more tales of wisdom and adventure waiting for you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep dreaming. Once upon a time, there was a great city. It was protected by high walls and a strong army. But one day the city was in big trouble. A huge army was marching toward the city gates. An army so large that its soldiers stretched as far as they could see. And if they reached the city would fall. Now this army had to cross a river to get there, but the only way across was a narrow wooden bridge over the river Tiber. And that bridge could not stand the weight of so many men. So the Romans panicked. They didn't know what to do. They couldn't let the enemy cross the river. But how could they stop them? Well, there was only one way. One brave soul stepped forward. His name was Horatius Cocles. And when everyone stared at him in silence, he said, "I will defend the bridge and hold the enemy here until the bridge is destroyed. I will defend the bridge with my life." Immediately, two other soldiers stepped forward and said, "We will go with you." So together the three friends stood firm. The enemy was close now. Their shouts and screams echoed across the water. Soon the first soldiers arrived, and the battle began. Spears flew through the air like arrows. Swords clashed and men fell on both sides. Horatius fought with all his strength. But there were simply too many enemies. His two companions were no match for the entire army. After fighting bravely, they knew the bridge would soon collapse. So while the fighting was at its fiercest, they ran away, one after the other, until they reached the other side of the bridge. Horatius was the last. He stayed until the very end. He watched as the bridge began to shake. The enemy was pushing their way toward him. Then it fell apart, crashing into the river with a loud boom. Horatius was knocked off his feet, but he was still alive. For a moment, the enemy stared across the river at Horatius. No one moved. No one said a word. They were stunned. They had never seen anyone act so bravely. And during that moment, Horatius took a deep breath and jumped into the water. He was hurt and tired and the river was cold, but he swam as hard as he could. Soon he reached the other side and collapsed on the grass. He had done it. He saved his city. The others cheered and ran toward him, shouting, "Horatius, Horatius!" They carried him back into the city, a true hero. And that is the story of Horatius, the man who stood alone to save his city. Do you think you could be as brave as Horatius? Why or why not? Let me know in the comments below. Being brave doesn't mean you're fearless. It means you're willing to do something scary to protect yourself or others. Sometimes being brave means standing up to a bully, even if you're scared. Other times, it means helping someone in danger, even if you don't know them. Being brave isn't always easy, but it's important. Like Horatius, we can all be brave in our own ways. We just have to try. So remember the story of Horatius. The next time you feel afraid, remember that you're not as helpless as you might seem. You can be brave. Now it's story time. Thank you for watching and listening. If you enjoyed this story, please like and share. It really helps us grow. Also, big thank you to our supporters. Your support helps us make the best content we can. And if you want to see your name at the end of our videos, then you too can support us. The link is in the description. Until next time, goodbye. Do you know the story of Julius Caesar? If not, then get ready for this and all the adventures that come with being a Roman leader. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to this channel. Today we're looking at the life of a legendary Roman general, Julius Caesar. Caesar was a brilliant soldier, an outstanding general and statesman who led Rome to many victories. He was bold, ambitious and extremely clever. Caesar conquered vast lands in Gaul, now France, and made many military triumphs. He was loved by the common people or plebeians. He gave them free grain and organized grand public events. He was so popular that when he paraded through Rome in triumph, the crowds shouted, "Long live Caesar!" Even so, not everyone was happy with Caesar. Many senators were afraid of him and his power. They didn't like how popular he was with the common people. One day in 49 BC, the Roman Senate ordered Caesar to disband his army and return to Rome. This order made Caesar very angry. He had raised this army to protect himself and his friends. Now they were telling him to get rid of it. So he decided to march on Rome with his army. His friend and fellow general Pompey was ordered to stop him. Pompey hesitated. He did not want to fight against Caesar, whom he considered his friend. But the Senate told him he must do it. So Pompey and Caesar met in battle. As Caesar led his troops across the little river called the Rubicon into northern Italy, he knew there was no turning back. He had only 1,000 soldiers with him. His enemy, Pompey, had 80,000. In the face of such odds, most generals would have been terrified. Not Caesar. He was calm and collected. "The die is cast," he said, which means the decision has been made. There is no turning back. And just like that, Caesar marched on Rome. He soon defeated Pompey's forces and chased him out of the city. Caesar became the ruler of Rome. He appointed loyal friends to influential positions. For 8 years, Caesar ruled wisely and well. He made laws and reforms that benefited Rome and its people. However, some senators still weren't pleased. They hated the fact that a man of humble birth could boss them around. Remember, back in those days, if your father wasn't a senator, you couldn't become one either. Also, Caesar had too much power. The senators wanted it for themselves. In 44 BC, these senators plotted to take Caesar's power away from him. They wanted him dead. Caesar had no idea what was happening. He went to the Senate house one day in March for a meeting. Little did he know it was his last. When he entered the room, the senators surrounded him. "Beware the Ides of March." One of them shouted. The Ides of March was the day in the month of March when the senators planned to kill Caesar. He laughed at first, thinking they were joking. But when he saw the daggers flash in the dim light, he understood. As the senators attacked him, Caesar tried to protect himself. He was stabbed more than 20 times. Among his attackers was a man named Brutus, who was Caesar's friend. "Et tu, Brute," Caesar cried. "You too, Brutus." He fell down and died. Well, the plotters had won, or so they thought. Soon, Caesar's adopted son Octavian, later known as Augustus, defeated them all. Augustus became the first emperor of Rome, and the entire month of July was renamed in honor of Caesar. You know how sometimes people say, "Beware of July." Well, that's why. And that's all for today. What do you think about Julius Caesar? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more exciting stories from ancient history. See you next time. Once upon a time in ancient Rome, there lived a brave and noble man named Marcus Atilius Regulus. He was a Roman senator and general who was known for his great skill in war and his unwavering loyalty to his country. One day, while Regulus was fighting against the Carthaginians in a war that had been raging for many years, he and his men got trapped in an ambush. The Carthaginians were a powerful enemy, and despite their best efforts, Regulus and his men were overwhelmed, and he was taken prisoner. When the Carthaginian soldiers brought him before their leaders, they offered him a deal. They said, "You can go back to Rome and tell them to make peace with us. If they agree to our terms, you will be set free. But if they refuse, then you will come back to us and face the punishment of a traitor." They made him swear an oath on the altar of his gods that he would surely return. Desperate to save himself, but torn between his desire to live and his duty to his country, Regulus went home to Rome. The Senate listened intently as he told them what the Carthaginians had said. "I want you to keep fighting," he told them, "for Rome must be strong. Do not accept the Carthaginians' offer of peace. Instead, prepare for war. Let us defeat them once and for all." Though Regulus's words were strong and inspiring, the senators were afraid. They had been through many battles and knew the cost of war was high. They were tempted to take the easy way out and make peace with their enemies. But then one senator stood up. It was Cato, a wise and respected elder who had also been a prisoner of the Carthaginians. He spoke to the others, "We must not give in to these barbarians. We are Romans. Let us show them the strength of our spirit and the power of our arms." Inspired by Cato's words, the senators agreed to keep fighting. They prepared for battle and sent Regulus back to Carthage with a message, "We will not make peace with you." When the Carthaginians received this answer, they were furious. They had expected the Romans to beg for peace, but instead they had been told to get lost. They dragged Regulus before them and broke their deal. They did not care that he had kept his word. In fact, they punished him for delivering their message. As they tortured him, they taunted him, "You are a prisoner now, so why do you pretend to be a hero? Tell us, isn't it shameful to be a prisoner?" Regulus answered bravely, "If it is shameful to be a prisoner, then it is even more shameful to betray one's country." Never will I do that. I am ready to face any pain and any death for my country. The Carthaginians hated his answer. They wanted him to break down and beg for mercy, but he did not. Finally, they took him outside the city to put him to death. As he walked towards the place of execution, he looked back at Carthage one last time. Then, with his head held high, he walked towards the waiting sword. When the news of Regulus's death reached Rome, the people were very sad. They mourned the loss of such a brave and loyal citizen. But at the same time, they were proud of him because he had died for his country. They built a statue of him in the Forum, the center of Roman public life, so that everyone could see it and remember his sacrifice. So the tale of Regulus reminds us that sometimes doing the right thing is hard, but we must be true to our word and our actions and never, ever give up. And that, dear children, is the story of Regulus, the Roman general who chose death over betraying his country. What do you think of Regulus? Would you have done what he did? Let me know in the comments below, and if you like this story, then please share it with your friends and family. Hello, friends! Today we are going on an incredible journey to meet one of the most famous conquerors in history, Alexander the Great. Alexander was born over 2,300 years ago in a kingdom called Macedonia, north of Greece. Even as a young boy, he was curious, brave, and full of energy. He had a teacher named Aristotle, one of the greatest thinkers of all time, who taught him philosophy, science, and the stories of heroes from the past. Alexander loved stories of heroes like Achilles. He dreamed not just of adventure but of great deeds that would be remembered forever. One day, while watching his father's army practice battle formations, young Alexander had an idea. He took a wooden plow and pretended it was a battering ram, charging through imaginary enemy lines. One day, he told himself, "I will have my own army and lead my people to victory." And this dream stayed with him as he grew up. When Alexander was only 16, his father, King Philip, trusted him to lead the army while he was away. So Alexander rode into his first battle leading a group of cavalry. Soldiers respected him not just for being the king's son, but for being clever, fearless, and inspiring. During the battle, he noticed a group of enemy soldiers hiding behind their chariots. He ordered his cavalry to charge, scattering the enemy and winning the day. "That's how it's done," he shouted, laughing, as he led his troops back to safety. After the battle, King Philip smiled at his son. "You have a bright future ahead of you, Alexander. You were born to be a great leader." After King Philip passed away, Alexander became the king of Macedonia at the age of 20. At his coronation, he looked out at his people and promised to unite all the Greek city-states and to conquer lands far beyond his kingdom. He had a dream of visiting the ends of the earth and creating a world where people from different lands could share their ideas and goods. "My kingdom is not just Macedonia," he told his advisors. "My kingdom is the world." But to do this, he knew he needed to build a powerful army. So, he spent years training soldiers, planning battles, and making alliances with other kingdoms. Then, when he felt ready, he led his army into Asia Minor. There they met the Persian king Darius III, who was worried about Alexander's growing power. The two met in a battle near the river Granicus. Darius sent his cavalry first, but Alexander surprised them by ordering his infantry to advance quickly and attack before the Persians could form their battle lines. The surprise attack worked. Alexander and his men fought bravely, and by the end of the day, the Persians were defeated. As Alexander and his army traveled deeper into Asia, he continued to learn about new lands and cultures. In Egypt, he founded the city of Alexandria, which became a center of learning and culture. He also visited the Oracle of Siwa, a holy place where people went to get advice from a mysterious voice from the gods, and there he learned that he was the son of Zeus, the king of the gods. This gave him the confidence to continue his journey to India, where he hoped to meet the legendary King Porus. But on his way, his exhausted soldiers wanted to go no further. They were tired and homesick and didn't want to fight more battles. Alexander tried to convince them to keep going, but when they refused, he knew he couldn't force them. So he led his men back to Babylon. There he planned to regroup and raise new armies. But while he was there, he got sick and died at just 32 years old. Though Alexander's life was full of adventure, he never forgot what was truly important. He was known not only for his military skills, but also for his love of learning and his respect for other cultures. Historians believe that he could have conquered even more lands if he had lived longer, but even as it was, he changed the course of history by showing that even a small kingdom from northern Greece could conquer the known world. So remember, no matter where you're from or how old you are, you can achieve great things if you have courage, curiosity, and a good plan. That's the story of Alexander the Great, a boy who became a king and a legend. Remember, you don't need to conquer kingdoms to be great. Every act of bravery, kindness, and curiosity can make you a hero in your own story. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing stories. See you next time for another adventure into history.